Retro.
What's up, guys? This is Daniel Logan, Boba Fett from Attack of the Clones, The Clone Wars, Book of Boba, Skywalker Saga game, and hopefully many more things in the Star Wars galaxy. You are listening to Jay and Dennis on Podcast Stardust. Yep, this is the way I've spoken.
Hello there, and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And we are going to get this week started with a look at LEGO Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy's Pieces of the Past Part 2. But before we start assembling bricks, Jay, remind everybody where we can be found on social media.
Absolutely. So your Force Dyad of Dennis and I can always be found on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
All right, the dish is aligned, the signal's boosted to maximum output, the shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. And like I said a moment ago, we're looking at part 2 of LEGO Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, Pieces of the Past. So, Jay, I thought we'd start with some overall thoughts and kind of keep it on the non-spoiler side here. Although, what are we really spoiling? This is a fun LEGO story here. And that's my big takeaway from this, is that this was fun. It pulls from not just canon. It's got plenty of legends references in it. It's a fun way. I feel like it's got some influences from Marvel and a few other places as well. And we were talking about how much it seems like the Rebuild the Galaxy series, and if you look at IMDb, they consider this season 2 of Rebuild the Galaxy as opposed to its own series. It's just based on imagination and fun and play and coming up with new possibilities and things. And this episode really does that, but puts some fun sci-fi fantasy elements in there that we don't usually get out of Star Wars. But what did you think overall about this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, it's definitely designed in play, with having play in mind. And it does have so many different references, as you said, to legends and comics and deep cuts and video games and, twists things on its head and also makes you, question the good versus evil that's going on in this particular episode too.
Mm-hmm. So ideally, we're not just going to go scene by scene because I said that last week and that's what we're going to end up doing. But it's going to be kind of hard to avoid because I feel like there are a lot of jokes that we want to talk about, a lot of references we want to talk about and things, and you almost have to put them in some sort of order. So anyways, I'm going to start at the top, and that is with the flashback that we get of how Solitus got trapped in the Force hold by Bob in the first place. That's kind of hard to say. At any rate, Solitus is training his Padawan Bob. They go to what looks like I called it the Star Wars Stonehenge in the last episode that we saw on Dathomir. And Solitus is using Bob to do some force building and then some Sith breaking. He's got a Sith holocron, and he's openly praising what they can learn from the Sith, kind of the way that Palpatine was talking about how the Sith know things and the dark side as a gateway to powers that some would consider unnatural. That's kind of the vibe I got from there, because Solitus is a Jedi and he's essentially betraying the Jedi Council by doing this. And Bob goes along with it at first because he's kind of being called out as being chicken, but then he realizes how wrong it is and he shoves Solitus in there. But what was your takeaway from this scene?
Yeah. So, I mean, he realizes that Solitus is kind of this villain that wants to control the shape of the universe, essentially. And, even though he looks up to him as his master, he realizes that, this is not the path that I want to take. And so where do I go with you? We'll just put you right in that void. That way we don't have to deal with you.
Yeah, it's kind of like the reverse Anakin,
Yeah.
Anakin, might have been intrigued by these powers, but he had a reason to. Bob's a little bit more pure heart when it comes down to it. So he doesn't go for that. From there, we are in the Force hold, and it was an interesting concept in part one, but now I'm really fascinated by it after seeing part two. And they describe it as a secret realm with discarded pieces of the past. And Solitus wanted to send anyone that stood against them there. When we get in there and you kind of see like things falling out of the sky,
Mm-hmm.
this reminded me of two very distinct things from Marvel. One, the void at the end of time that we saw in Loki and Deadpool and Wolverine, and
Yep.
then Sakaar from Thor Ragnarok. There, just kind of like this junk planet of the galaxy where things that get to start wash up in that
Mm-hmm.
place. But it's Ahsoka who shows up, the Brickhead's Ahsoka shows up later in this episode, and she kind of talks about how, like, these galaxies that have been unmade, there's always these leftover pieces, and this is where they end up. And I'm like, they really did borrow from the TVA and the Marvel playbook with the description of this. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but very, very strong vibe that I'm getting from that. But what did you think about it?
Yeah, I agree with you when you put it that way for sure. For me, I was kind of looking at it as almost a metaphor for, if you look at it from a real world perspective, as we were saying, just Lego in general is a way to be creative and have fun. And, as a kid, just using your imagination to do all of these things. So I kind of wondered if this void or, the pieces of the past actually referred to other play sets that maybe you've owned before, and you know how you take pieces of this playset and pieces of that playset and you put them together that don't normally were marketed together or whatever, but yet some things get lost, and so you end up morphing things together and crossing over things, making mashups, having discards here and there and everywhere. So I think it was kind of, I don't know, kind of that visual metaphor for, the things that end up in your garage. And maybe Solidus is kind of, the keeper of the garage kind of thing, or the attic.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think that's incredibly accurate there. I had a similar thought when Ahsoka was talking about, these leftover pieces from various, galaxies that came before. That made a lot of sense. And if I'm going to be cynical here, it was kind of like a way to promote certain other type of Lego sets
Oh,
that
yeah.
come down to, and we'll get to as we get there. But yeah, I mean, I think there's something to it. Yes, I know exactly what you're saying. You buy a very cool Lego set, you put it together, and then later you decide to try and make something out of it. Well, then you lose some pieces in the process. Well, then you can't rebuild the set, so you got the leftover pieces, and they just become part of your big box of Legos that you free build
Hmm.
with. I
Hmm.
remember doing that countless times as a kid, and you got all the minifigures that you import into something else, or you take a minifigure from a different type of set and use it with this one. All works in that regard. But anyways, we'll be touching on the Force hold a little bit more as we go. We get a better look at Solitus's ship, which is called the Oblivion Runner, which I thought was a really cool name.
That is a
Uh,
very cool name.
K2SO is serving as his lieutenant there. Kind of some fun little nods to other Star Wars there about how in other versions of this galaxy, you've been programmed to be your hero, but fortunately, we don't have that problem here. And K2SO nods in agreement. Yeah, that's right, Master. It's Alan Tudyk that's doing the voice. I can't help but get the vibe that K2SO is going to turn on Solidus there. This seems to be like some big foreshadowing here by saying, this has happened in other galaxies, but it hasn't happened here. Wink, wink. And, the other thing is, he's been reprogrammed to be a hero. This is kind of like Solidus is embracing being a villain in this situation. He knows he's a villain, and it's a little bit, it's bordering on the edge of mustache twirling in that regard. But anyways, that's my takeaway. Willing to be wrong, but what do you think?
No, I like that take, and I think his body language, K2SO's being just kind of hunched over,
Yeah.
like he's very not happy to be where he is in the universe at this point in time. But I also feel like this particular scene was brilliant because it kind of broke the fourth wall without breaking the fourth wall. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And so I just thought that that was a really clever way to, explain, "Oh, yeah, and in another universe, you would be like this, but you're not. Aren't you glad?"
Yeah. I also just wanted to shout out the Oblivion Runner for its build. When we saw it come through the Force Hold and at the end of part one, it looked like just a Trade Federation battleship that had been painted black. It is so much more than that. It's part Trade Federation battleship. It's got the back of the Tantive 4, so blockade runner on the back of it. And then where the two arms of the blockade or the battleship meet, they're actually AT-AT cockpits there.
Mm.
So again,
Love
talk
that.
about fun mashups. That was pretty clever.
Yes, indeed. Very cool.
Well, then we get the return of Maul, who did appear in the first season of Rebuild the Galaxy, voiced by Sam Witwer. And he is now the Baron Administrator of Snow City, which looks like they basically put Cloud City on Hoth.
Yes.
And his sidekick is Queel, who's being voiced by D. Bradley Baker this time around. Maul's just fun here, you know. It's Snow Fabulous. It's no he talks in the tune of Duel of Fates when he's talking about the planet. Of course, nothing can go wrong. Just as the Oblivion Runner shows up and sucks him off into the Force Hold.
Yes, and Sam Witwer always does such a great job of bringing Maul to life, no matter whether he is the Maul that we know and love from the Clone Wars or Rebels, and
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Just incredible.
I also kind of like the droid tanks that had snowplows on the front of them that
Oh,
were running
yes.
around down below. That was a nice touch.
I've spoken.
So yeah, Quill. They did work in an awful lot of lines from famous lines from
Yes,
various things, and that was of course one of them. And we would have been disappointed if Quill was there and he didn't say I had spoken. So,
exactly.
but getting back to Sig and Dev, they wake up inside the Force Hold and immediately run into Jackson, who we talked a little bit about several news episodes ago when they revealed that he was going to be in there, and he gives his line about being a real deep cut, which was a nice touch. And then we get back to Bob and Yessie as they're leaving Dathomir, and Yessie's mildly panicking because she can't reach anyone in the Alliance, and she names off a bunch of people, including Leia and Mara.
Yeah,
I
as in
double
Jade?
checked on Wikipedia if there was any other Maras, and I couldn't find them. But they did have an entry for Mara that ties directly to this, which mentions that StarWars.com confirmed that that is a reference to Mara Jade.
Oh, okay, so it is.
Yes.
Wow.
So I don't know if she's going to show up in parts 3 or part 4. Frankly, if she doesn't, I'll be disappointed since you name dropped her here. But
Mhm.
yeah, again, we started this episode by talking about some of the callbacks to legends and the like, and Jackson's one of those, but he has kind of made his way into the current Star Wars universe as of late, which take that for what it's worth. If you like it, great. But Mara is quite the reference, a very popular reference, I would think.
Yeah, indeed. And I was at the kind of skipping towards the end here when they do get to Canto Bight and they were looking for all of the Jedi that were there. I was looking in the background to see if I could see her in there somehow.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But
No, I
everything
was
was so
keeping
fast.
yeah, I was keeping an eye out for her as well, but did not see her here. But it's funny. The other thing that goes on in that scene is that the Sith that they captured in part 1 are still in that holding cell that the Sith, in fact, designed for Jedi, and they're trying to act reformed. But Darth Rose Tico is like, I do not want to do that on a Smash thing, and Darth Ray is like, you'll blow our plan. So again, more foreshadowing
And
from
then there's just Kit Fisto, just happy as all get
yeah,
out, always.
indeed. I think he generally thinks he's reformed, but we'll see. But they got to get to Canto Bight in order to warn the Jedi Order, which they do by, I'm skipping ahead, by finding the Porg ills. So
Yeah,
they've,
loved that.
yeah, mashed up the Purgles and the Porgs so they can pull off the Ahsoka trick by using them to get through light speed and hyperspace to get to Canto Bight quicker before it disappears because Solitus is just jumping all over the galaxy, sucking up all the planets into the Force Hold here. Fun little scene. I like the mashup between the Porgal and the Purgles there, but what'd you think about it?
Oh, yeah, I think that was my favorite mashup was the Poor Girls because that was very unexpected, but it worked. It was
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah. I also just got to call out, I think it's smart of them that for like the close-up shots, we get the full scale model of the Dark Falcon. But for things like that, they use a mini model of the Dark Falcon to so they can go into the Porgil's mouth,
Mm,
which
mhm.
you know it reminds me of the scale of like the little sets you get when you buy the advent calendar and you get to build those things. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I
mhm.
like it.
So back in the Force Hold, Chewbacca shows up, and this is after Jackson is trying to lead them to the village, and he's not particularly friendly. He's out to get them. As an aside, this Chewbacca is based off of a set that Lego put out. It is one of their UCF sets, the master builds, and it was 2,319 pieces. It is a retired set that you can currently get from other websites from anywhere from $230 to $270. So if you're interested in that. So last week we had the Death Star, which is that cross section, and they just announced that they're having that $1,000 Death Star set, which is similar to what we saw there. This week they show this Chewbacca. Now that again, it is a retired product, so it's not like you can find it easily, but it is out there. Similarly, when Brickhead Ahsoka shows up here to kind of fight him off, this is also a retired product at this point. It's 164. The Ahsoka model is 164 pieces. You can still find it online for $12 to $20. It's not that rare right now, but just I don't know what to make of that. It is a fun way to incorporate these other type of models, as you were saying earlier, into this episode. And the Force Hold is the place where that they can make that happen, because it wouldn't make much sense for them to show up in the rebuilt galaxy that Sig and Dev just came from. But
Right.
anything's possible in the Force Hold. I mean, here we are applying all this logic after we were just praising this for its imagination and creativity and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, what'd you think about the Chewbacca model and Brookhead's Ahsoka?
Well, I didn't even know that the Chewbacca was a real set until just now. So that's pretty cool piece of information there. Piece, ha ha ha. But no, I think you're right. It makes total sense that they would show up in, this like pieces of the past kind of way, because it doesn't make sense that they would be in the current type of galaxy, so to speak. And I think that there's also other sets that are in here. You're talking about things that are kind of serving as more of an advertisement than anything else. I mean, is the speeder that Dev builds, I mean, is that available as a set too, I'm assuming?
Yeah, but that's part of the same scale of everything that's going on. I mean, there's
Uh-huh.
we see LAAT gunships, we see the we see TIE interceptors, which was in the last episode there. But to me, it's just like, again, with the cross section of the Death Star, especially with the big announcement that set's coming out, we see in part one, and then something that is so identifiable, as that Chewbacca set to a particular set, to a particular model, and the same with the Brickheads Ahsoka. I mean, they didn't make up Brickheads for this. Brickheads was a lot; it still is. There's plenty of models that have not been retired. It was just it's just glaring to me. And I'm not necessarily saying it's bad, but
Mhm.
again, these are two sets that are retired. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
why would you do
Pieces
that?
of the
If you,
past, you
well,
know?
yeah, I get that. But the bigger point is that when Ashley Eckstein showed up at Celebration with one of those models, I got to think thousands of people would have wanted it. It probably still do. And now that they're seeing it in this episode, I can imagine only more are going to want it here. So, anyways, just I'm just a little surprised that there aren't like more set tie-ins for
Yeah.
all this. But
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they pull some of this stuff out of retirement, because
mhm,
it would make sense that they would do that, because like you said, this is building, pardon the pun, building some interest in perhaps having those once
yeah,
again.
yeah. The other thing that stood out to me is like every time we saw Ahsoka, and she's kind of talking about where she came from and what's going on, and then we also get it a little bit with the Porgils, is the use of the music from Ahsoka that
Oh,
Kiner
yeah.
wrote. We
Mhm.
also got Ludwig Göransson's music from The Mandalorian when we had The Landalorian last week here. So they're
Uh-huh.
really bringing in like the full catalog of music, and we've heard plenty of John Williams music as well.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's a nice touch.
hmm So eventually, Jackson gets Dev, Sig, and Servo with the help of Ahsoka to the last free village in the Force Hold. And Servo meets Viper, who's being voiced by Jennifer Hale, and develops a crush on this little Imperial probe droid looking thing. I was paying attention in the background. I watched this episode twice for who was there. And there's some that are definitely who I think they are, such as the Grand Inquisitor is there. Enfys Nest is hanging out
I
there.
caught that one. Yep.
Yeah. Salacious Crumb shows up. A
Okay.
character in black clothes, black hair that's long, the longer side, with a scar running down the right side of his face. Pretty sure that was Kylo Ren. And
Mm.
then we had someone that looked like Hoth Leia, but we already have Princess Leia
Yeah,
back
the
on
puppy
Canto Bight.
vest. Yeah,
Yeah,
I noticed
yeah.
that. Mhm.
And then what I'm pretty sure was Bib Fortuna was there
Yeah,
as
I think
well.
so too.
So
Yeah, that
do you
was a
catch?
pretty easy one to figure out, I think. Mhm.
There's and a major character gets introduced in a second, and we'll talk about him in a moment. But is there anyone else in the background that you noticed that I didn't list there?
No, I think you had a really good catch there. Like I said, I did not catch the Grand Inquisitor. I saw the puffy vest. I did catch Enfys Nest. That's a great call on Kylo Ren, and Bib Fortuna was kinda stuck out like a sore thumb to me. But other than that,
Yeah,
no.
you know. All right.
Except for our biggie we're gonna talk about here in a sec.
So yeah, so Ahsoka is kind of given some of the past, some of the history here, explaining how pieces of other galaxies end up here, and she also explains about how she found people and created this last free village. But of course, Solitus has been a threat. And then we get the big Cal Kestis reveal, voiced by Cameron Monaghan. And he talks about how he's the only Jedi survivor from his galaxy. It's like, nice name drop from your last video game. Good work.
Yep.
Yeah. And so
Bravo.
he's impressed that Sig is a force builder because there's a definite distinction between Jedi and force builders here. But at any rate, yeah, we kind of talked about, this is where they're all from. They're the leftover pieces from their galaxies that don't fit anywhere else. So, any other observations about the village here in the Force Hold?
I just love the fact that they brought Cal Kestis into this
Mhm.
because, I mean, we've got all of these other like visual representations of characters from movies and from, animation and stuff like that. But I think this is the only video game one. And would love to have seen Marin too. Just saying.
No,
But
we're about to get another video game one here in a
oh,
second.
true. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah. I feel like for him though, he's appeared in a lot of other places too for me. I mean, in my brain
yeah, but he's
pan, like
primarily known
novels
for the
and
video
stuff.
games. But
You be
right,
right. Yep, you
yeah,
be right.
and Cal's also shown up in a novel, for that matter. So
Good
the
point.
Battle Scars.
Good
But
point.
at any rate, the so they're on their way to Solidus's fortress to get to the bottom of things, and so it's Servo, Viper, Dev, Sig, and then Brookhead's Ahsoka. It's hard just to call. It's not just Ahsoka; it's Brookhead's Ahsoka.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
and she's going on about how thankful she is for Sig making the little sidecar because she doesn't really feel like she fits in. And this is where she's talking about how she's found the people and brought them to the village, and she's got this self doubt about leaving, leading the people there. Everyone looks up to her to do it, but then there's that line about you never know, you might find something you think you lost forever. And I couldn't
Mhm.
decide if that was foreshadowing for Ahsoka or Dev gives a reaction to that's foreshadowing for that or both. But what do you think?
Ooh, I like both of those ideas. And I guess I hadn't really thought too far into it other than just to point out that that's what sort of the Lost Village, is the piece of the past, kind of
Yeah.
area is in general.
Yeah. Well, because she goes on to point out how the Sith won in her galaxy and she was the last
Mhm.
Jedi. I was like, well, that's kind of what happened in the regular Star Wars universe as
Mhm.
well. Not precisely, we all know, but still, it'd be interesting if she like learned something about Darth Vader later, or I don't know. There's a lot of different ways they could go with that here.
True.
Uh, but and we also get this conversation. You brought it up a little bit ago. How Dev and Sig are a dyad in the Force in this situation, which kind of leads a little. It's not discussed a lot, but it kind of makes sense that it just couldn't be necessarily anybody that was creating the power to open and close the Force hold. that Solitus needed them in order to do it. So again, we learned about dyads in the Rise of Skywalker here, and so they're bringing that in as well as a concept. But I know it's one that you're very fond of. What did you think?
Yeah, I was a little shaken in some ways
Uh-huh.
because it was something that we were just talking about in the context of the High Republic
Uh-huh.
and saying how incredibly rare they are, which of course, Lego can do whatever Lego wants to do because it's not canon. But then again, I think it's just capitalizing on that idea, just simply from the Rise of Skywalker because people are familiar with it. And you have two kind of opposing sorts of skill sets, if you will, that work together for good. And
Mhm.
so that's exactly what Sig and Dev are doing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it'll be interesting where they take that and how much further they develop it here. But so, they get to the fortress, and we get to see Sith holocron that's got Darth Ki-Adi-Mundi talking
Yeah.
about a power where galaxy can be turned on itself and cast into everlasting nothing. Uh, you know, uh, Jackson, I know what all these things are, but everyone should feel free to shout them out with me. I had fun with that line there. But then they find Solitus's throne, which is using kyber crystals to and then the balance of light and dark, that building and breaking that he used to get through and back to the regular Star Wars galaxy. So, again, what I liked about this is for all the praise that we give this for using its imagination, you can't take it too seriously. This episode, compared to the first one, I'm not saying that there was no thought put into part one, but there was like a whole lot of thought put into part two here
Mhm.
with the world building they're doing and kind of calling on the different lore, that we've referenced throughout. But I really dug this idea that they developed here.
Yeah, I do too. And again, kind of going back to the whole dyad thing too, it's kind of Lego logic in a lot of ways to combine powers and unlock the next step kind of in a way. And they really stumbled upon some pretty rich territory in this particular episode for sure.
Right. And then the moment we've all been waiting for since we talked about it on the news a couple weeks ago, we had Darth Revan and Darth Obi-Wan show up there. And then Obi-Wan
Yes,
drops a lot of his famous lines, hello there. And of course,
right.
voiced by James Arnold Taylor. And of course, Darth Revan was voiced by nobody because he's
Right.
just not. But
Not much
then,
of a talker.
yeah, and Obi-Wan gets to whip out the, oh, I don't think so line. And just when they're about to be overwhelmed, Chewbacca comes to the rescue because he became friends with Servo, and Servo lets us know that Chewbacca enjoys wearing bandoliers because they are practical and stylish. So,
Okay,
uh,
did this remind you at all of the Bumble from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer when the Bumble was so mean and rah, 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 and but then the Hermie, I think his name was the little elf that wanted to be the dentist. They just found out that he just had a bad toothache, and
Dude,
so
yeah.
he was he was all ready to help them. This just I don't know, this just reminded me so much of that in
That's a
so
good
many
call.
ways.
I hadn't thought of it, but yeah, that is a good call. I mean, for me, it was just kind of emphasizing the King Kong reference with
Yeah.
Chewbacca. I mean, this giant hairy beast that was pursuing them for some reason and wouldn't let the whole thing go, especially some of the more recent King Kong movies where he's the guardian of the underworld. And, here we are, the Force Hold, which is a stand in for that underworld type of a thing.
Oh, I see where
So,
you're going, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I I'm not accusing them of ripping anything off, taking inspiration from, quite possibly,
Sure,
in
sure.
all of this. And in that way, it's again kind of playing on the whole imagination angle that we've been talking about,
Oh,
using
yeah.
ideas from other sources and blending them into
Pretend
Star Wars.
play. Yep,
Yeah.
that's what kids do in pretend play.
Yeah. And so starting around out of time, so I'm going to skip a little bit ahead here, but we do get to Canto Bight, and we've got all the various Jedi and Luke hiding behind one of the legs of the Sandwalker, and Palpatine's admonishing Vader, not so loud, Vader, they'll hear us. And we come to find out that Greedo is popping the question to Leia,
Ugh,
and of course she
funny.
says yes, but uh, it's it was funny in the first season, but now it's just weird. But
It's
what do
just,
you think?
yeah, it just does not sit right with me. It just gives me the heebie-jeebies,
Uh-huh.
quite honestly. I mean, I know it's supposed to be a galaxy turned on its head, but this is a little too far for me, quite honestly.
Right. And then just as Lucas saying, nothing can spoil this day. For once, nothing tragic is going to happen to the Skywalker family. Well, that's when the Oblivion Runner shows up and Solitus arrives and he starts taking them all on. We got Grievous wielding 4 blasters, but he doesn't last long before he's thrown into the Force hold. And then we have Yoda, who is not a Jedi, but more of a smuggler
Love
in
that.
this. Yeah, but he's still flipping around and then he gets thrown into the Force hold. And then we have our Jedi Council, which includes Palpatine, Vader, Jabba, Cad Bane, Jaina, Dooku, and Lobot. Uh, they go into action, and then everyone but Palpatine and Vader gets thrown into the Force hold. Palpatine gets to whip out some of his favorite lines, such as that you'll find that it's you that are mistaken about a great many things. And when he manages to get a blow in on Solitus, Soldier says, "You hurt me." Then Palpatine's response is a surprise, but a welcome one, to be
To
sure.
be sure.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so Palpatine gets sent off the Force hold, and then, but he told Vader to take his family and run, and that's when Yessie and Bob show up. And, yeah, so I adore the Darths, the Sith in this, and the Jedi in this. They did such a fun take on those by taking especially when they reverse the alignment. Jaina was
Yes.
never, she's a Jedi, but she was never on the evil side when we saw her. And then of course you take Rostico and make her a Sith and like that. And then they amp up the personality to like 11 on this.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I love that. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but that's what you do when you play, and you
Yeah.
explore different options of things. I just love Lobot being on the Jedi Council, can I just say?
Yeah.
I just
Well,
think
I also
that's
like
great.
Jabba because he just kind of like hangs out there in the background with a
Yeah,
lightsaber in his
yeah.
hand. He doesn't really do much.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I love all the deep cuts that they do in this. And I'll tell you what though, what would really be impressive to me is if they would pull out a Lego Wilro hood, complete with Comtano, just running amok. I just
We'll
think
have
that'd be
to
awesome.
keep our eyes open for that. So,
Yeah.
all right. So Solitus managed to get everybody but Vader and the Skywalkers, Bob and Jesse, rescue them back in the Force hold. They managed to get the portal to work. Jackson, Viper, Chewbacca hold off Kenobi and Darth Revan, while Ahsoka, Servo, Dev, and Sig go through the portal. And we get a nice little line that ties into the hope themes that we're all familiar with Star Wars. There's always a new hope when you need one. So that brings us to the end of the episode here. Is there anything that we haven't discussed you want to get into, or any other moments or cameos that we haven't covered yet that you want to talk about?
Not really, just more of an observation. I just think about the voice actors in this, James Arnold Taylor and Ashley Eckstein and Sam Witwer, all of those that we just talked about. And what fun this must have been for them to take their characters and kind of turn them on their ear in a lot of ways. And, Ahsoka is probably most true to her original characterization out of all of them. But I just think they must have just had a blast doing this. So I'm
Yeah,
happy
especially
for
Sam
them.
Witwer doing Maul.
Yeah.
It's no fabulous. It's no fabulous. I just I watched that the first time I was riding the bike. And that made me
Oh,
laugh
I
pretty hard.
laughed out loud. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Good
this is
stuff.
fun. I enjoyed the first season, and I really didn't know what they were going to do to make a second season make sense. That wasn't just more of the same, but the Force hold, that was
Yeah,
just such a brilliant concept that added so much to it. I'm really pleased with it, and I'm being patient. I'm watching one episode a week as we go through
me
all of
too.
this, so that when we're having these discussions that they aren't spoiled with the knowledge of what comes next.
Yeah.
And so I am looking forward to being able to watch the third part tomorrow. So
Yes, same here.
all right, well, that was fun. And I hope everyone listening to this has had an opportunity to watch it and enjoy themselves. And thank you for joining us and getting our take on it. We'd love to hear yours. And Jay will give you our social media contacts in a bit so you can reach out to us if you want to do that. So I want to remind you, if you haven't subscribed to the show yet, we would really appreciate it if you did. That and ratings and reviews are the biggest things that help drive the algorithm to get the shows in front of more people and really drive our discussion and everything that we got going on. If you want to find more episodes beyond the 1 or 200 that you're likely to find on your podcatcher of choice, best place to catch everything we got is over at retrozap.com. The entire catalog is there, as well as a bunch of other great shows that are on the network. I know they've been busy over at Enjoy Stuff lately. Love, Death, and Robots, plus wrapped up their discussion of the most recent season of that show a little while ago. And of course, you can find, Superhero Suite has got, I think, bi-weekly episodes, but they've been busy as well. Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody what our social media contacts are, as well as the other places we have set up shop on the internet?
Yes, so you can snap to it by following us on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. And you can also check us out on our Pinterest boards where we have tons of ideas for everything Star Wars. And then our 2 YouTube outlets, which include the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. So no videos there, just, static pictures that you can look at, but you can always leave us some reviews, interact with us there, let us know what you thought of this episode and any others as well. And if you are in need of a closet refresh or some new Podcast Artist swag, we sure would appreciate you supporting us over on TeePublic. And we have all kinds of different show logos, 7 of them to be exact, on all kinds of products from t-shirts and sweatshirts to coffee mugs, even home goods, tote bags, and all kinds of fun things. And the link to that is in our show notes.
All right, upcoming on the show on Wednesday, we are getting into the High Republic finale one-shot comic from Kevin Scott. And then on Friday, we are wrapping up the week with a look at Star Wars news. With that said, thanks for listening to episode 948 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great week. And until next time, may the Force